Welcome to the Diablo 3 podcast, Reaper of Souls podcast. We are online at diablo-yngamers.com. I am the host, Flux, and I am joined the show this week by Xanth.
Hoy hoy.
And by Ynzerg.
Howdy doody. That was the worst intro ever. I would like to take that back. Hello, everyone.
Oh, you sounded much smoother there.
Okay.
I hope your social catalog's free, because you're going to be getting more than a cat shelter.
I do not know where howdy doody came from, but we'll move on.
It came from the 50s in Hollywood. That's where it came from.
Oh,
That
man.
was awful.
That was the worst.
You've been on the show for a couple of weeks, Xanth. You've been on the show forever, Ynzerg,
Yeah.
and we'll get to what you've been doing lately and other activities before we get started here. But for Xanth, you had a comment when we first started rolling. You were not on the show lately. You did not attend the Reaper of Souls launch party. And on last week's show, I have a couple of points you might want to address here briefly, or not at all. On last week's show, it was suggested that you were not a real fan since you did not attend the launch party. Do you want to defend yourself?
No.
Okay, point 2.
Okay.
The tragic death of your witch doctor at level 66 during your first battle with Mathia was made light of. I believe Nineball was the one who was making fun of this. Would you care to explain your tragic death, which apparently, by all reports, went exactly against every bit of advice you offered in your preparing for Reaper of Souls hardcore column like a day before that?
Yeah, I really did go against my own advice. I was, it was late when it came out, about 11 o'clock here, and I was just, with my previous knowledge of Act 5, burning through it. I knew about Adria. I knew she was going to be a little bit tough. And it was just still a single playthrough. So the gear that Witch Doctor had accumulated really wasn't the greatest, and my toughness wasn't too high. So I found myself at 66 going, should I drop it down from hard to normal and just go for Malthion there? And in such a lust to get to adventure mode, because that's really what I wanted to be doing, I'm just like, I'll just go fight him. He can't be that bad. And I did not last long. That Witch Doctor became very squishy. And I died pretty quickly.
You'll recall during the beta, your first experience with the beta was rushing into a higher difficulty with your Witch Doctor, and then bad things happened? It seems to be a theme for you of late.
I just think that Witch Doctor was really meant to die. And it did, so curse is broken. Curse is broken, people.
I don't know what build you had, but most of the Witch Doctor builds tend to be really powerful against large groups and not so good against single targets, which is obviously a problem when you get to act bosses.
Right.
So maybe keep that in mind when the next expansion comes out and you want to plan your first night of adventures. And point 3 is the most controversial point that I wanted you to address, Xanth. Later in the podcast last week, the quality of iTunes was impugned, and someone, again, I'm pretty sure it was Nineball, it wouldn't have been me, said that iTunes was a horrible software that should not be installed on anything with more technological sophistication than a toaster oven. That Steve Jobs' recent death occurred not a moment too soon, and that these comments would outrage both of our Mac listeners. As a Mac user, would you care to rebut?
I mean, I use a Mac, I like a Mac, but it's not for everybody, and I could understand his complaint, but I do like the 2 Mac listeners. I'm sure there's a few more, but
I'm a Mac user as well.
Okay.
Wow, both of you right here.
I will say that the Diablo client for Mac has just labored through a huge amount of bugs. It was bugged the entire time through beta, and you had all these people complaining, and then it goes live and has the exact same problems. At least patch 2.0 did, and thankfully they had figured it out, because every time you'd start a game, your computer would actually crash. So that was fun.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's kind of an issue.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, it's no matter what you say, the people are going to argue on either side. So I'll just defer and say nothing.
Would you like to add a point on Max Ynzerg, or is your black turtleneck so tight that you can't?
No. Was he commenting about iTunes specifically?
Well, yeah, that came up. At the launch party, Wyatt Chang asked me how come our podcast is always messed up on iTunes, and I said because iTunes is the worst piece of software known to mankind.
Right. Well, I mean, I loathe iTunes as a Mac user, so I can say I can be on both sides and be boringly neutral. I like Macs. iTunes is horrendous, and they mess up the UI. I don't know, bi-monthly, like so this hideous, unusable mess. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I agree with Nineball in that respect. So,
I like how you both believe Nineball said any.
Well, I thought that's what you said.
I did because I lie. I'm a bad person. That's why I'm the host. I also like that you've committed to being boringly neutral on a podcast. That's really going to go great.
It was just for that topic. Just for that.
You could try to just bypass that.
I mean, I started with a real howdy doody. Yeah, if I said barn burner, I was going to say it, but that's almost as bad as saying howdy doody. So I kind of put myself into a lame trap. There we go.
Well, best intro ever.
Yeah.
So, Ynzerg, you haven't been on the podcast in a while. When were you last on, and what have you been doing? Did you get to play any Reaper of Soul? You didn't play any in the beta, which is one reason I wanted a guest on the podcast who hadn't played in the beta, so some of the stuff would be fresh and new, and you wouldn't be rushing off to get to adventure mode at 66 like certain people. I think bad things happen.
Yeah.
And did you play any of Diablo 3 version 2?
I did. Yeah, I played that. That was kind of, it kind of got me. Like, I hadn't played for a while. I took because I don't know, just kind of burned out on the old game, and then my buddy was like, he was the first one to try out 2.0, and he kind of kept talking to me. He's like, dude, it's really good now. Like, it's really fun. And I kind of didn't believe the hype that a lot of the stuff was fixed. And then I tried it out and started playing 2.0, and it was. I mean, there was a lot of, they really, I don't know, they revitalized the game in a really interesting way. And then I had not tried any of the beta at all. And then, so we all kind of, I waited for a while to play Act 5 after the release because I wanted to play it with my friends and like in person. So we didn't do it until, we didn't complete Act 5 until Saturday, and I kind of just, leveled around and did, so I didn't have adventure mode all week and didn't actually realize what I was missing, but, so we did Act 5 on Saturday together, and it was fun, man. I didn't realize, I didn't think Malthael would be hard at all, but he has some highly dangerous moves if you don't know what you're doing, and I was pleasantly surprised, man. The music is incredible in that act. There's a lot, like, there's incredible, like a large amount of dungeons to explore. Yeah, I don't know. I'm thoroughly impressed with what they've done with the game, and I love the new act. It's my favorite act at the moment. Obviously, because it's fresh and I've played everything else a million times, but it seems really well polished, really interesting. A lot of.
So based on your day of experience, you like it best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these days go pretty long. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. It was Friday. Excuse me. It was Friday.
I'm sorry,
it's
2
been
days. I didn't realize it. You just doubled your time spent.
Yeah,
so
well, I mean, the addiction is here now. So,
so Xanth, you obviously played a lot in the beta, and Act 5 was there, except for the very end of it. Do you notice changes, or are you happy to get back to it, or do you just want to venture mode?
It was when I was in the beta, I played the story through just once, just because that was when they had switched it over, so that you had to, go through it to unlock adventure mode.
No, you did it twice because they erased the beta characters once.
Right.
So you did it twice, but other than that,
no,
yes.
I didn't, because the first time adventure mode was just unlocked for everybody. You didn't have to play through the story in the original Friends and Family, and then they added in that component where you had to go through just once. So I only did the story once. I had played enough of Act 5, but I like it. Do not get me wrong. But adventure mode is the biggest draw for me.
Yeah, totally.
I found myself doing more bounties and all that kind of stuff than necessarily feeling the pull to jump into Act 5 and just play around. I mean, I think it's gorgeous. But ironically, I also find that the bounties themselves are the longest and, kind of not worth doing by comparison to jumping into Act 1, which is really familiar territory, and I can kind of plow through them.
It's all about the side events.
Yeah.
West March Commons, you can get, 10 times the experience jumping into every cellar than you can for the bounty itself.
Right.
But not so much in some of the other areas.
Right. And if, it's a question of what you're farming for, too. I'm not that concerned about experience right now. I'm more concerned about finding gear. So, I haven't really plowed through much of Act 5. It is definitely awesome, but I think because of all the beta experience, I didn't feel the need to kind of go down every single corner. Like I know a lot of people, especially in the guild, were doing, where I was, before I died, plowing through all the bosses and everything. Um, I I was seeing people going, "Oh, this is awesome! Check this out," kind of thing. And I'm just was a little more hasty, I guess, and obviously it led to my demise.
Excuse the ignorance, but how, like in the beta, how far did Act 5 go?
Right up to Malthael.
Okay. Just.
You entered the level 3 of the Panda
Oh,
Fortress,
wow.
and you started going over the
The
steps,
Panda
and then it
Fortress.
ended. So I mean, literally, it's like right down the hallway from. I was surprised. I figured they'd be like a whole other level or something before you got to him. But no, it'd be as if Act 3 ended when you were going down the stairs towards Asmodee.
Huh.
I mean, it's like that close.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, I guess not cool. That would drive me insane, I guess.
It was nice to not have an endless staircase before a boss. I mean, you kind of got that in Act 3 and Act 4. It's like, oh, here's the boss. Oh, and here's 60 seconds of running down a straight
I
line.
love that the backdrop before you fight Malthael, but I was a little disappointed that it was like basically it was like fighting. You know how in like Super Mario 64 you fight Bowser on the same platform every time, but like you fought Malthael on like a circular platform just like you fight Diablo. I thought that was a little. I don't know. I think that was the only thing I was disappointed by.
At least there wasn't Shadow Malthael in the middle of it with 2 minutes of taunting.
Yeah, at least not.
Terror.
The
Terror.
realm of terror.
Thank God for skip cinematics, huh?
Right.
So, what class are you guys up to? I have only played a Demon Hunter so far. Trying to when D3 came out, I switched my time. I played a Demon Hunter, a warrior, a barbarian, and a wizard, and kind of alternated between them and shared gear before we had smart drops and you could share gear.
Yeah.
And as a result, that was kind of fun. That I was trying to self gear, not using the auction house, and it just took forever to get any of them geared up. And of course, that it took until about August to get geared up in the first Diablo 3, since it was really hard to find
Hmm.
gear unless you used the auction house. But this time I said, screw that. I'm just going to play one class. And I'm just playing a Demon Hunter and trying to just build one character instead of jumping around. And obviously, your initial experience was with a Witch Doctor Xanth, and that had an unhappy ending. What have you been playing since then?
Well, the blessing in disguise with the Witch Doctor dying was the biggest thing was I wanted to play Crusader, but because my previous ties with my Witch Doctor, it being my first Paragon 100 and only Paragon 100, I felt the need to kind of keep them going. I definitely do like the Witch Doctor class. It's extremely fun. There were a lot of cool builds I was looking forward to playing with, but when he died, it was kind of nice because now I really had a reason to just, well, I'm already I'm already dead. I don't want to jump back to a different Witch Doctor. Let's just make a Crusader. Um, and I just hit 70 with him yesterday, and today I've spent a little time just doing adventure mode and rifting and bounties, trying to slowly scale Gear Mountain and find a build that's working. I think that's the thing that's really nice about the Crusader is even though I had a bunch of beta experience with him, it's still kind of an undiscovered country in terms of what's really going to work. And people are still kind of pulling these builds and saying, let's try this and or this gear combination. Whereas with, the other classes, even though like a wizard has been really kind of redesigned with Loot 2.0 and the patch, people are able to kind of start putting together these builds and figuring out synergies, whereas the Crusader was kind of the question mark. And it's been kind of nice to play with something that's still being figured out.
So you leveled up in adventure mode, or you zoomed someone else through to 70
Um,
or through Act 5?
no, I did strictly adventure mode because I may
But you hate adventure mode.
um, right after I got killed by Malthael, I had corn kills actually just kill Malthael for me on my wizard, just because I was in such a rush to get to adventure mode because it is by far more efficient for leveling than doing the story, and it's more exciting too. So from 1 to 70, all I did was compile all my blood shards and all my rift keys, and once I hit 70, I was able to kind of go through do all the gambling I wanted, and I still have a huge amount of keys I can use for rifts too.
That's one benefit of leveling up in adventure mode. You can get all those materials.
Yeah, there's no point in really using them early on because the gear is replaced right away. But if you save them for 70, then you could actually end up getting something that's usable for far longer.
So how about you, Ynzerg? What have you been playing? Did you take a 60 and get to 70 in adventure mode, or did you do a Crusader, or what?
I took a 60. I've been playing Wizard basically exclusively.
Wow, you don't see many wizards around either, so
No,
must
you
be
don't see
unusual.
any frozen orbs ever either.
Hardly.
Ever. Yeah, I really like it, man. I've been playing the Wiz. I'm gonna start a Crusader at some point. I just haven't had time yet. But finding a lot of cool. The legendaries are kind of shaping a build at this point in a way that this game never allowed before, which is kind of interesting. All of my gear is kind of like very, very lightning specific, to the point where like like it wouldn't make sense with the time I had in to not run like a full lightning Sork at this point. And I think it's kind of cool. I don't know. I've got a lot of interesting synergies going on, and I really like. I found these shoulders today that are pretty interesting that have nothing to do with my lightning thing I just said, but like I can now TP without taking damage, or without being interrupted, and I take like half the amount of damage while I'm TPing at the same time. Like, so I don't know. I've kind of enjoyed just playing this high level character and seeing all this new gear that I never got to see. I'm not sure how much they had in the beta. I assume a lot of it, but I'm kind of like taking in all these legendaries at the same time, but pleasantly surprised as well. The new skills are cool. Black Hole is very cool, a very useful skill. I'm not sure if you got to. What are you playing right now? You said you were
Demon Hunter for me.
Yeah.
And Xanth playing Crusader, I guess, is only. I played every class but a Witch Doctor pretty extensively in the beta. So.
Yeah, that Black Hole skill is really awesome.
Yeah, I used that on my Wizard definitely in the beta.
It's just so useful. I can just grouping things and everything. So, yeah, I mean that's it so far. I plan on starting a Crusader pretty soon, but just haven't gotten to yet.
I kind of wish smart drops weren't so smart, or at least weren't so uniformly the same thing, because you just can't gear up. Like, you play a game and you find 500 rares and 498 are junk for your current character, and one is an upgrade and one is maybe good for another character of the same class. Like, I've got a few decent items for a monk at 70, basically, playing the Demon Hunter. But you never find just, mediocre quality whatever with intelligence or strength on it that you could put on a new character at 60 or 65 or whatever.
I have found two legendaries that were from one for a monk and one for a Demon Hunter. And I'm not totally sure why, but I guess there's still room within the smart drops for that to happen. But yeah, I kind of wish I could find something else that would encourage me to try a different class,
Yeah, we worried about that in pregame, and this whole thing of Diablo 2 where you'd find a Titan's Revenge or something. It's like, okay, now it's time to make a Javazon, and you don't get a lot of that with the smart drops because it's very, very smart. So I wish there were a little more exceptions to that maybe. But so have you been doing adventure mode? I mean, Xanth and I played a ton of that in the beta. So and obviously you heard Xanth that he was dying to get back.
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
So
definitely.
Jumped into that, and you're running bounties.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I didn't really know what to expect, really. I mean, I'd read stuff, but I didn't really know what it would feel like, and it's really fun. Yeah, I was thinking just a second ago, or I was thinking like kind of before I even came on here, like I wonder if there's any incentive to do story mode again. So no, but then I was thinking like, well, in D2, you never did that anyway. You just jumped around like adventure mode, minus the bounties, of course, but yeah, the bounties are a nice touch, man. Obviously I didn't get to try it, so it's all kind of new to me, and I'm loving that, loving the rifts. I've not gotten anything good from Kadala yet, but I'm glad that there's a new guide in town,
Yeah, we got a whole thing on gambling coming up here in a minute, but so jumping back into rifts and adventure mode, Xanth, you were dying to do it, and you're getting your chance. Are you noticing any differences from how you played them in the beta? Any changes? I mean, they changed a lot over the course of the beta. There were some really quick, easy, cheap ones they've taken out completely now.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be in the beta, there were certain quests that you knew you could just walk up, punch one guy, and then you already got your experience. They've kind of fine-tuned that, but what I noticed in the latter half of the beta was the bulk of the experience, because I was thinking in the terms of leveling, the bulk of the experience you got had nothing to do with the quest. It had everything to do with just clearing out the area rather quickly. which it ended up being, again, as I leveled 1 to 70 with the Crusader. It was just jumping on to these quick quests. The quest was a nice bonus, but rushing through and killing everything around you was boosting you up far faster than whatever experience that you were getting from each of them. And there are some that are still a little frustrating, when you see it's like 150 monsters and the area well enough that it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna have to kill everything on this map. I think that can be a little frustrating. The same thing with the rifts. There are a couple rifts that it's just one map, so you have to traverse the whole thing, clearing it out.
Yeah.
That can get a little frustrating, especially if you find the exit first. You take off down a corner and oh, okay, so now I know I'm going to have to do this whole thing if I want to get it. But by and large, I mean, they're pretty much the same. They're less buggy because I've yet to hit one that doesn't have an ending or doesn't spawn, and they're still really, really fun. I think I caught myself. I was up until 1 last night just doing riffs, and each time I'm just oh yeah, I'll just do one more, maybe a legendary will drop, and then I'll log off and then finish the rift, and there I am in town again going, well, I probably could do another one. Yeah, I'll do that, and it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it is.
If you recall, the last couple of weeks before the launch, there was all that stuff with reset quests and guaranteed legendary drops from Diablo, and then it was now you can get this from Malthael and Act 5. I'm this is all so irrelevant once Reaper of Souls comes out. No one will ever do story mode again. And people who hadn't played it were well, it looks like it's pretty good. It's a big deal. They're all obsessing over it and how do I reset my quests and stuff. And I think you probably were joining me on that, Xanth, sort of chuckling at this. No one will ever do this when there's adventure mode.
Well,
and that was adventure mode, Ynzerg. Can you imagine ever resetting quests and doing all that again?
No, that's I really don't see. I don't see how. I mean, I guess I don't think they. Well, maybe they care, but I'm not sure that they do care that you ever do that again. There's no incentive to do it unless they decide to hide certain items behind or story mode or something. I don't know. Have they ever said anything like that?
No, they're not doing that.
That would be bad for business. Yeah.
Be bad.
Yeah, there's no reason to do it. I mean, going up with a new character, well, I guess a new character you can go straight to adventure mode. Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Level 1.
Never mind.
Can you still go anywhere you want, Xanth? I haven't done a new character in adventure mode. Could you go to Act 5 at level 2
You could go to Act 5 at level 1 and go for Malthael if it was your quest. Yeah. I mean, it's all scaled down to your level. So as you progress, it just progresses with you. And it is amazing. I think I actually had a hard time between the beta ending and Reaper of Souls launching, because having played adventure mode and having done the rifts, it was really hard to kind of go back to that rigid play style of doing runs in these set areas and not being able to kind of go and do what I wanted. I mean, I was still on, but I was definitely not on nearly as often as I plan to be now, because it is just a much more engrossing game.
I miss the monster counter too. It's just fun to see how many you've killed in areas. I think Diablo 1 had a monster counter at all times, and it was fun just to watch the numbers go up. I did enjoy that when you first do a rift, I think the first achievement is for 500 kills, and everybody seems to get that right at the end of their first rift. So now there's about 500 monsters to kill in your average rift. I never knew that. So I guess it's 5 for each percentage point or something like that, roughly. Anyway, I got the first rift I did, I got that bonus just after I killed the guardian. I went just around on the next corner. And it was ding, I'm oh, there's 500. So it wasn't quite 5%, but something like that. So for you, Ynzerg, you'd obviously heard about Nephalem Rifts, much like adventure mode, and you finally got them. And so you're how different are they? Is it really random, etc.? What did you think?
I'm happy with that, man. I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised again. They call me, I don't know, a reformed and jaded person. I didn't believe. I was always going to get it. I was never one of those guys I'll never get the expansion. I was always going to enjoy it, but I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I am. The rifts are super fun. Yeah, sometimes they're insane, man. Sometimes I'll start a rift and there's 2 boss packs right at the door. I'm oh god, dangerous, man. I can see how people are getting swamped in here, but yeah, it's fun. I'm getting a lot of good items in there. That killing the Rift boss has like this huge explosion of confetti that sometimes pops legendaries. It's great, man. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. You get tons of experience in there.
Rift Guardians used to drop 2 items, and you'd go back to town and get a goodie bag from the dude by the whatever his name is, Ekrinu or whatever. I forget his name already. God knows. We've only done 500 of them between the 3 of us. We don't know what his freaking name is. But yeah, so I think that was an obvious and a definite improvement. It's just fun to watch the Rift Guardian.
What was they only dropped 2 items?
It would drop like any other random elite, and you would go to town and get a goodie bag like you do from completing, bounties.
I'm glad they changed that.
And then you'd go and open the goodie bag, and it would pop with roughly the same gear. I think I actually get a little more in the dungeon now from the dude.
Yeah, and also,
but that's just a much more fun, much more immediate feedback.
I guess I don't know if anyone's out there listening wonders why I was so ignorant to all this. I also deliberately avoided any streams. I didn't want to. I didn't see the point in watching other people play a game that I kind of wanted to see. So I didn't know. I really didn't know anything about this other than kind of reading some articles here and there. And
well, that's why you're a good guest on the podcast.
It's awesome, man. I'm really impressed. I think they've completely changed this game. It's out of beta to some degree. It's got a lot of good features. So yeah, Rifts are great. In conclusion, really fun.
So, question for you about Rifts, Xanth, but two things I've noticed differently. There's a lot of different maps. Some of them, they seem to have fixed some of the problems. Like you would get like Pandemonium Fortress levels, and there'd be like 1 monster every like 10 seconds. And it was like, oh god, this is so slow. Some levels you got really low monster density in Rifts. The other one I really noticed that is the 2 ruins catacomb areas right on the way to Adria, where when you do them in story mode, you get like thousands of those little scarab bugs that come crawling over the edge of the rubble, and that's what the monster density is. And you never get those bugs in a Rift, and you'll just run through like 50 rooms and get nothing in there. And I got one of those on my first Rifts, and it was all full of like dark red colored zombies, all Act 1 zombies, but they were in huge clumps, and it was much nicer. And that was a little better improvement. I've also noticed more of the maps seem like they have passageways and forks in them. Like they were almost all just straight lines or zigzags or something, but very few branching paths.
Yeah, you could usually kind of figure it out before, and now it's more of a hunt, which is nice.
I kind of like not having any dead ends, but yeah, it's a little better. The other thing I've really noticed is that the big open area rifts almost always are elite rifts now, where you get like 20 boss packs. I've gotten the big Act 5 cemetery twice like that. And I got a couple of the big Act 3 surface areas when you first go out into the the frozen tundra, like where you live, Xanth. And it's open and cold and icy, and there's just a boss pack every quarter inch in every direction. Those seem like those are almost, that happened occasionally in the beta, but it was really unusual. And you would occasionally get a boss rift in a dungeon, like the Keep 2 type dungeon, where like every room would have another boss pack, and it was just crazy. But have you noticed other changes to the Rift, Xanth, or things you missed?
One I noticed, it was late beta, I saw it too, but I got it the other day, is the warden's room, the huge jail cell. The one Rift where it is just a gigantic map. Instead of that small little enclosed area, you go in thinking it's going to be the traditional tile set, and then you pop out and you just keep going and going and going, and it's filled with elites, and it's actually really exciting to see how massive this map ends up being. I had a lot of fun with that, and the Adria one, I just noticed it, like clicking or hitting the destructibles actually kills monsters.
Yeah, it makes like a little bomb that races around the room, like little white, looks like a
haunt for as often as I had been in there, I never noticed it until today.
Pardon the ignorance again, but like, are you guys able to? You're talking as if you can identify the rifts like distinctly. Are you just talking about the tile set, or are you memorizing patterns at this point?
It's just tile sets. All the floors are different, random.
Okay, I didn't know if they have not delivered on their random promise, and I just didn't know it. So it is actually random then. Okay.
And yeah, some of the levels you'll get. I like the Arr-oh-ess one. You get that a lot, and sometimes it's like a quarter size, like it's a little miniature oasis. And other times it's just totally weird, bizarre layout. It's like you'll go right, and you think it's going to go up to the left, like always, and it'll just go in this big circle down around the bottom, like a corkscrew. And I just found that really, I don't know, that level especially is interesting. Plus, it's always like midnight purple or something.
Yeah, I like how they're changing the colors of the time of day, basically. Like, because
and
Yeah, it
it's
looks
raining in
totally
some of them and
different. I
such.
did. So I didn't recognize. Sometimes I'll just like, oh yeah, I'm in this such and such act, and didn't even realize it initially because it just looks so much different, or so different. Excuse me.
Well, our other writer, Waterfiend, had a whole thing in the beta. He wanted to do a feature where we would get screenshots of interesting rifts that were totally changed on palette and lighting, and say, here's this level. Try to tell us what normal
Huh.
level this looks like, which was a good idea. And we never actually did it. It was not my fault we didn't do anything more with it, but I liked the idea a little bit. But usually you could tell. I mean, like the Dog Oasis, you see palm trees, you know where you are. You know, there's only one level in the game with palm trees, but and it's BlizzCon. That's the level. It's the BlizzCon waiting in line to get into BlizzCon. They should have put that in the game. That would have been a pretty awesome level, wouldn't it? You run around
Just
the Anaheim
waiting in
Convention
line,
Center and slaughter
queuing.
cows. hmm You get to kill cosplayers, just like
Yay.
real life. So Nephalem Rifts are cool. We're trying to move on here. We got a lot of topics. Any last thoughts on Nephalem Rifts? They're fun and they're varied and more. You
My
know they
only,
are.
I guess my only last thought is do you think the current state is enough to? I know they're going to do that tiered rifts, but do you think that's enough to hold interest, indefinitely, or are the mobs going to come out at some point? And I don't know. I'm just kind of looking down the future and seeing if people are just like, okay, what's next? But I mean, I love them so far, but I'm just wondering if you thought about that yet.
There's always going to be a question of more, and I think the approach that they're taking with the tiered rifts is probably going to be enough. Tiered rifts in combination with ladders will,
Yeah, ladders. Yeah, it's going to be
I
exciting.
mean, that should be probably fine. For me, having adventure mode back and having rifts back is amazing, and the greatest testament I can give to it is very infrequently when we do a podcast am I playing the game, but right now I feel the need to. So here I am talking and playing, which is something I would normally not do, but because I'm so drawn in by adventure mode and rifts, I can't help it. I
You're
know.
Nine Ball-esque. Of course, he's usually defending the sacred groves of bamboo and Pandaria, so it's a little different, but close enough.
Working
Same
on
thing.
his let. I'm sorry, God.
So, Blood Shards and gambling. That's another thing that's come up. You were stocking up on Blood Shards all along, Xanth. I didn't do adventure mode for a while until I started getting them. And people have been talking in game. I know the captain in our hardcore IncGamers West guild, Muggs, had said he's already done like 2,000 Blood Shards gamble and hasn't gotten a single legendary yet, even after they claim to have buffed the
Significantly, huh?
drop rates on those. And I haven't gotten any, but I haven't done that many. I've only done like maybe 400 bounties, gamblings, things. And you get blood shards at a much slower rate than the beta. Initially in the beta, you would get 5 per bounty, if you can imagine
Hmm.
that, even on low difficulties. Then they cut it to 3. It was 3 on normal bounties and 6 on torment. And I think now you just get 1 plus like a 1 extra. You might get some extra ones in the bounty in the goodie bag,
Yeah.
blood shards, I mean. So you get them much more slowly, but it's like I got to 500 before I ever used any, and I couldn't think what to use them on. Because all you ever get, you get 98%, 99% rares when you gamble, and you're finding billions of rares as you play. So the odds of any of those being an upgrade are pretty damn low. And occasionally you'll get a legendary, at least in theory. I haven't seen one yet, but people have shown them off in clan chat. Maybe they're plants, maybe they're lying. Maybe it's all Wyatt Chang in disguise. And so you get those, but even then you can't get the torment quality legendaries. So it's good for like low level gearing, but eventually your character will want better stuff than you can ever get from gambling. So it seems like gambling is going to be just limited eventually to what you do when you're first at level 70 or low level characters, and otherwise you don't really care. And I'm wondering what the long term is, what we're going to do with these. Should there be more purposes for blood shards? Are you feeling blood shards are useful, Xanth, or do you see them eventually having a shelf life and just
I
being irrelevant?
I I mean, even in the beta, I was barely using them because the drop rate was so low. Um,
What was our joke about the 500
it
max
didn't
cap?
matter.
That like they put that in so you'd be forced to gamble
Well,
some. Because it was really annoying when you start dribbling them across the room after a Rift Guardian dropped
right.
27 or something.
I probably ended up with like maybe 150, 170 blood shards from going 1 to 70, and then through doing rifts, I probably have wound up with about 500. And since I'm still gearing, I gambled most of them away, but I have yet to get anything of substance. And I think you're right. It does pose a little bit of a dilemma because you won't eventually you get the gearing, by doing the rifts and stuff like that. You'll get the gear you want, and then whatever gambling could give you, will be of no value. The only thing I could see is when you switch over, because as you mentioned, the smart drop problem, trying to pour your blood shards into getting gear for that character, but that eventually that's going to kind of cap out, especially for softcore, where you don't have to worry about re-gearing every time you die or anything like that. I think they have to put in something to give it a little more value, a little more bang for your buck. Like, even if it was just a chance, even a minor chance of a Torment level legendary, that would be maybe enough to kind of warrant still spending, or at least still having the push to spend.
Yeah, I have all these other level 60s now that are essentially naked because I sold all their gear off when we sold an auction house. And so that's going to be really useful for me with Blood Shards, because when I start playing my Witch Doctor, who's got, like 2 crafted items that were bound on account and everything else is gone. It's like, okay, I can just hit the gambling and get a bunch of 60 rares and just, tide me through to 70. But long term, I'm wondering what those are going to be good for. Obviously you're much newer to the whole gambling and Blood Shards thing than we are, Ynzerg. Are you using them? Do you see, are they excite? Do you see a long-term value to them?
Crushed my dreams. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we do on the podcast.
Like back in D2, like I would use gambling before they nerfed it considerably. Like we would always use it to get like Frostburn or something, like every time. Like you could, given an amount of time or amount of money, you could always gamble kind of things you wanted. So I'm sitting there hoping, like, after I read that hotfix the other day, I was thinking, well, I'm really looking for a level 70 Stormcrow right now. It would just complete this whole lightning thing I'm doing. So I've been throwing them all into helms, like vainly, or kind of thinking that this is going to happen, and now I know it's not, apparently. So I was excited. Yeah, I mean, so.
Well, you can get a Stormcrow, but in 6 months that'll be like junk, or in 6 weeks probably, at the way
definitely.
you're going.
Yeah, so I don't know. I use them. I use them all up, but I guess I've not gotten anything useful from them, unfortunately. I'm just hoping. I was hoping that the legendaries were a little bit more frequent than anecdotally it seems at this point. So, yeah, I think the system's cool. Maybe it needs some tuning then, I guess.
In the beta, initially, you could buy a goodie bag, much like you get for finishing a whole quest, cool. A whole act of bounties. And those were what, 100?
Yeah, it was 100. But I mean, that's where.
I think that was actually too. That was like too.
I mean,
good,
even
almost.
If you made them 400, that's what I'd be spending all my blood shards on, because it was the best way to go. And the thing with that too is those were restricted. I believe the bags, in terms of the loot, it was restricted just like the Heraldric caches are, to the chance of legendaries were mainly in the like for that particular act. So it gave you just another way to farm, like in terms of farm the legendaries that can drop from the bounty rewards. And you can go through, you can look at that list, and there are certain legendaries on there that I would personally like to have, and if I could grab another bag and have another chance at one of those, I would rather do that.
Yeah, I wish there were options to gamble for bags, even if it was 250 or 400 or 500 or something. That would be so. Because long term, you have no use for what you're doing now, but you would do that. I also think there should be a way to do bigger ticket stuff. Like, say there's 10 times the cost of any normal gamble, but you have a chance to get one of those Torment-only legendaries. You totally do that, because why not?
Yeah,
right?
that would be cool.
Or what if it was 50 shards to gamble for a legendary material, for a material, with a very slight chance to get a Forgotten Soul or one of the random, weird legendaries? You'd consider doing that sometime. Why not, right? As opposed to just, oh boy, 57. It's like you're almost annoyed when you do it, because you got to run over to the NPC and sell those stupid rare whatevers you just gambled, and they're going to suck. It's like 1% chance that one will be sort of maybe useful.
No, that actually brings me back to a different thought, but kind of related. With the proliferation of rares that we don't need, do you kind of miss what we had in the original beta for Diablo 3, the Heraldric Cube, wasn't it? No, not Heraldric Cube. Yeah, the Salvage Cube.
Salvage Cube?
Where we could just...
You could do it right in the field.
Doesn't it kind of feel like there would be a better use for that now? That you have so much gear that you don't necessarily want to pick up because you already know the stats on it, because we don't identify our loot unless it's legendary now.
Well, at this point, I've already got 1,000 stack of all the materials, so I would just want to... If I could carry a wort in my pocket and just sell the crap in the field... I don't
But
need to
we could
salvage
do
more
that
stuff
too
now.
with there was another option there too to sell.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, there's an auto sell from
I
this
kind of
guild.
would like that.
Well, we're just older than jaded. I'm sure Ynzerg still really enjoys picking up rare
Oh
items and
yeah,
seeing
yeah.
if they're
Well,
any
I mean,
better,
I'm probably
right?
at the point where I could maybe find an upgrade every once in a while doing that, but maybe not actually. So no, I'm gonna be on your side here.
So 5 whole days of RoS and you're already sick of picking up rares.
Well, I'm
That
still
might be
finding
an
rings and
ominous
stuff that
sign.
actually are somewhat good, but yeah. I mean, the rares. I mean, I'm looking for, but it's not ominous, man, because I actually look forward to the legendaries, and for the most part, they're delivering. So that's a whole new thing for me, man.
Are you guys using names, or have you switched to the little
I
icon
do
things on
icons,
for item
at least for
drops?
now. I like it.
I do names still.
Yeah, I switched.
I don't know.
You're such a luddite. No wonder you use a Mac. You're like, wait, he uses a Mac too. Yeah, I switched to that in the beta because I was just you can't tell what rares are worth picking up when all you see is the names now. You know, back in the old days, you could memorize the item types and say, okay, that's a ring, that's a shoulders, that's a glove, that's whatever. And then once they were just names, you didn't remember what anything was unless you hovered over it, which was slow, or picked everything up. And for the first, here we are 4 days into RoS, and I'm already getting selective on rares again because I've got 1,000 stack of materials. So I'm pretty much just picking up like, gloves and rings and amulets and maybe like, I don't know, follower items or something like that. Otherwise you just fill up so quickly that it's annoying and I don't really care. I don't need the gold that much on US hardcore. So I'm not bothering to sell them. You can get pretty good gold. People were talking in clan chat, you get like 5 to 7,000 per rare
Oh,
item you
really?
sell at level 70. And if you're selling, what's a full inventory, 30 or something? I mean, that's well over
Are you
100K
really
right there.
worried about
So
gold right
it
now,
does
though?
add up. I'm not, but people in clan chat
Yeah,
are
I'm
broke
broke. I
already.
mean, I was an idiot who spent. I man, I wish I would have known any of this. I like bought crafting materials, anticipating Reaper souls, only to,
If only there'd been a website you could have read that had 20
I,
articles in the last week.
yeah, but I
Sell all
didn't.
your crafting material.
I
Did
didn't
you buy
read that.
gems too?
No, I had enough. I had enough gems, but I felt so. Yeah, I'm sure I could have read that on the site, but I just didn't. I didn't find that particular article for some reason. So yeah, now I'm broke. I have like a few million, and that goes pretty quick.
You will never not be broke again.
Oh,
That's the sad part. Unless it's an auction house. You just can't ever build up gold. It's too tempting to
yeah,
spend
and
it on
crafting
enchants and stuff.
and making new gems and stuff is pretty expensive. Do you have an enormous amount of money left over?
I've
100.
I've got like a billion.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
How much are you down so far, Xanth? I'm down about 39 million, I noticed
I'm
today, since the start of the beta.
I,
Since the
I
start
mean,
of the live.
obviously dying and then working my way back up. I'm down like a million. That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I'm down. Mine's all gems and
I haven't
enchanting,
bothered
basically.
to build up too much on gems, having just hit 70 yesterday and kind of hoping for better gear at the moment. Um, and only some slight enchants because most of the stuff I haven't really had to enchant, or if I could, it was so marginal that it wouldn't have been worth kind of the money. But I'm
And when you enchant at level 52, it's like 4,000 gold
right,
anyway, so
and it's
it's
going to
almost
get
free.
replaced so fast anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I had two main complaints about itemization and stuff during the beta, and they're both exactly the same as they were now. They're both exactly the same now as they were then. So I guess I'll restate them briefly. But so I just found the higher level 70 cane set last night, and checked out the recipes, and all 4 items in it require a flawless royal
Right.
gem still, which is the highest level gem, which is what I think 9.8 million to make. And more to the point, I think it's 81 marquee gems of that type. So that's like a week's worth of every single gem you find of one color just to make this item once. Which I guess if you're looking at 6 months down the line isn't that big a deal, but it sure seems pricey right now. And the other thing that's making me annoyed is it's really, really hard to find offhand weapons, items, like quivers, mojos, or sources, that have critical hit chance and good stats. Because when you go to roll those things, they have like 40 possible
Yeah, they do.
Yes,
attributes in some of the
it
slots.
adds in the plus to skills, right?
Yeah, and our next topic here is legendary materials, but I just made the Archfiend Arrow's quiver after searching about 6 hours to find the goddamn materials to make it. And the roll wasn't good. I got no dex. It has inherent critical hit chance and inherent plus to elites damage. But I got no dex, and it rolled with Impale as a skill, which neither I nor any other Demon Hunter has ever used on purpose. So it's like, now what do I do? If I try to roll Impale to get Dexterity, you get a plus 700 Dex or something, there are literally 32 options, potential replacement mods for Impale on that item,
Oh.
affixes. And there's one that I really want and two that I could tolerate. So, bring your own Forgotten Souls for that, right?
Right.
So that's a little annoying with there. Or else I could re-roll. I think it's also got like an 8% cooldown reduction. So in theory, I could try to roll that for Dex, and there's only like 10 possible options on there. But there's just so many options on some items compared to other items. And I harangued John Yang about this in a live stream during the beta. He's one of the developers. And he was like, yeah, it's a good point. And now it's exactly the same as it was. So it's almost like I was just blown off to humor me at the time or something. No, I'm sure they're working on it furiously. So anyway, legendary materials. That's another new thing. We got a lot of those in the beta, and I had, I don't know, 27 or something of them built up over time. And there's now like 45. They've sure added about a dozen more since the beta ended between now. And you don't find many of them until you're level 70. You get like Adventurer's Journals and Griswold Scribblings early on. They fall out of bookshelves and crap like that. But almost all, I believe all the ones that come from purple bosses only can be dropped at level 70. And they're really, really hard to find. So are you getting into the system, Ynzerg? Have you read guides to how many there are? I'm actually working on a big ass guide for that. I hope to get it by Monday morning.
No, I'm a little bit in the dark.
Wiki updated. But there's lots, and you need them all for crafting.
I am a little bit in the dark on that. And I had a kind of a rude awakening when I found the like a level 70 sage. Is that what it is? Yes. Yeah, it's the set plans, and I did. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm never gonna craft these because like I've never even seen or heard of the items that I need. So I don't know. I have to look into that a little bit more because there's some specific items that I don't know. Are they all like? Can you directly farm most of them if you know where to go? Is it bosses? I've noticed the bosses. Like I've got Magda's Soul once or twice, I think.
Yeah, save those. You those.
Okay, yeah, and I have another set, the Demon's Skin or something, and I need like, or maybe there's some material. Anyways, I don't know where to get these materials yet, so I'm a little bit in the dark on that. But
obviously, I need to work on this guide for the site because I hear a lot of this in clan chat.
Are you in the know on all these?
There's a really huge thread that some players developed, basically kind of a crowdsourced thing over the course of the PTR and the beta in our main IncGamers, Diablo.IncGamers.com main community forum. And it's got 1,000 responses or something to it, and it lists all of the materials and what drops them, and which recipes they're for. But I'm trying to get all that set up in the wiki so all the pages, everything links to itself, so you can just, here's the monsters. Okay, what are these monsters like? The way the legendary materials work, I'm sure Xanth knows this, but I'll just say it before he gets his speech on them, is a few of them drop from objects. Griswold's scribblings drop from bookshelves and such, and those little... we always, and Kane's, the other one from Kane's thing, we always joked about how Kane lost 500 backpacks in the game somehow. Well, those are worth clicking because they dropped the other one.
Okay, yeah.
Adventurer's
I have a number of those.
Come out of floor tiles and stuff. Yeah, those are the ones you get a bunch of. And all the other ones only drop from certain purple monsters of a certain type. So for instance, I was looking for, when I was making this Archfiend Arrows quiver that I was talking about, you need a Shuddering Demon Bone, which only drops from purple Morlu melee monsters, the kinds you get in Act 4, who have like the big staffs they run around with. And basically there's 2 of them that are bounties in the Gardens of Hope level 1 and 2. And so really if you want those, you do what I did yesterday, where you just create new games, see if either of those guys, Otash and the other one, are available for a bounty, and if they are, you race that area, you find them and you kill them, and you don't get one, and you curse, and you make a new game. And you do this over and over and over again if you want a specific one. And there's really, some of them you'll kind of get by accident. There's some that are much more common. Like there's the symbol of something Brotherhood. I don't know if you remember the name of that one, Xanth, but it comes from those big brawler guys you get on the top of the barracks and the ramparts in Act 3. And if you start Stone Fort, right at the start of Stone Fort, you find a little purple guy, like almost every game, standing next to that first bridge. And he can drop that one. So that's the other one that we all in the beta had 10 or 15 of, because you get a lot of those kind of bosses in purple. But some things are just really, really, really rare. There's some that only drop from various bosses. Like you mentioned, Magda is the only one that drops hers. And there's other ones that only drop from, Succubi and whatever and whatever. And really, you don't care about them until you find a really good plan that requires them, and that's all you care about, and you hunt them obsessively. And have you been doing any legendary material things, Xanth, or you're still scrubbing around in Act 3 and story mode and you haven't gotten there yet?
I mean, I am
Not even
level
level
70.
70. Barely.
I, it's kind of still the same thing as what I had in the beta with these items is for as potentially good as they can be, sometimes it's a lot of work for nothing. Just kind of like what you were describing with your roles. If there was some sort of guarantee in terms of what could happen with these, then there would be a bigger push for me to kind of feel the need to run Magda 50 times to get it because I knew that there was at least something at the finish. But in particular, drawing back to the Magda thing, I remember making a cane set because I had found it in the beta and just getting absolutely horrid rolls. And now I could enchant and that would fix one problem, but it would still have a lot of other issues. Or I could go back to farming and then get the rest of the materials and try again. It does seem like they could still use a little more polish to make these items really shine, because right now it just seems more effective to be farming for a better item as opposed to kind of crafting them.
Don't you think it's the long-term thing? You know, it's, I mean, like I mentioned the cane set, we both made those in the beta when they were cheap,
Right.
before they had the gym cost. And I actually, my best gloves I ever had in the beta were a cane set, and I had Kane's boots that were very good, and if you had two of them on, you had 8%
That's
IAS, which
awesome.
was a really nice bonus in these days. So that was, I would use that on my Demon Hunter and my Monk. I would switch the gloves back and forth between them, because I had a couple of Kane's boots that were equivalent, but I just had one really good gloves. And it wasn't even that great. It was like, but it had really high dex. It was like, I don't know, 790 dex and 10% CC, but it didn't have critical hit damage or IAS on it. So, I mean, it was far from perfect, but it just had two really big stats of the trifecta and then other decent stats. And then, as you say, Xanth, you made the same thing and got bad luck on it, and then you were soured and jaded by the
Exactly.
whole experience.
Well, the big thing too is,
So,
you're making legendaries, you're making sets, and while the sets have bonuses, a lot of the legendaries you can make, there's really like no extra wow factor to them. Nothing that's really build changing. It's just kind of a stat stick with maybe maybe a little more damage. Chances are not. It would be kind of nice to see some diversity in the regular items that are not sets to kind of make a push to craft those as well.
yeah, I guess it depends on what you have and what you. I happen to find those two recipes. The other one I found was the Unbound Bolt, which is a level 12 bow. And for that, you need the Shimmering Quill, which only drops from purple quill
Oh
fiends,
wow.
who are hard as hell to find, of course. And the place you look for those is you go on the road to Old Tristram, and you go into those little dark, damp cellars. And you just start a new game. You go to Tristram, you vault your ass, zooming super fast along with tactical advantage in your Demon Hunter, and you hit all the cellars. And like every third game, you get one of those purple guys. And it took me about 50 games before I got one of them that dropped the thing I wanted. Sarkoth, I believe, was the one who dropped it. And then you need that to make the thing. Ironically, the hardest part to make this was I needed to get a double shot bow. You need to get a white bow, for these recipes, the crafting now. And that was the funny part in the beta. I had the Archfiend arrows recipe forever in the beta, and it was they required a white quiver, and those didn't exist. It was literally impossible to get a white offhand item in the beta, even though they had the requirements for crafting materials, and for several crafting recipes required this. So a little oversight there. So they did fix that part. They just removed the quiver requirement entirely, and the same with sources and mojos. They just don't have that requirement. But it's really, really hard to find ranged weapons or class weapons in white colors. You'll find 100, flails and swords and all this basic crap. If you want a wand or a fist or a bow, yeah, good luck. So I was doing Halls of Agony 2 and 3 because they have lots of weapon racks down there. In those same games when I was running the other part of Act 1, trying to find the stupid quiver, the shimmering quill. And eventually I finally got one, but it took forever. And the added fun is my best item is a puzzle ring. I have a really nice quadfecta puzzle ring on, which of course has a little goblin, a puzzle goblin as I call him, who grabs all the white items when they drop, and after every 13 of those gives you a crappy rare. So I had to take off my best ring to do this stupid white hunting in the first place. And of course you can't feed your goblin white items you picked up and dropped in town. They're like an endangered species that won't eat in captivity. They only eat wildly when they harvest the white items. If you just drop 50 of those in town, he just stares at them and says, "These are not good enough for me," like a finicky cat.
Or like a cat.
Yes. Well, my cat will pretty much eat anything, but most cats are, he wants to catch it himself. So you end up doing this, extra weird stuff, and finally I got that one, and that actually was an upgrade I'm using. It rolled like 2400, like 2450 DPS with a socket, and the inherent stats on it are cold damage, IAS, and something else that I'm forgetting. And it didn't roll. It rolled with a socket, but I did not roll with Dex. So I had to turn the IAS into Dex, which got 5 enchants. But that was a solid upgrade over the rare that was like a 2390 with a socket that I had been using. But as Dan said, it doesn't have any special properties. And if I found a critter shot, I'd throw it over in 2 seconds. So my 6 hours of farming to find this were well worth the time, or not. And this is a glimpse into your future, Ynzerg. If I ever get this stupid guide written up and you can find
the only thing I've even grafted at this point was those, what is it called, Reaper's Wraps, just for fun. Because when I beat Malthael the first time, he dropped the plan and the resource to do it.
Yeah. Well, lucky you, because apparently
I saw that on the forums today, and I was like, well, it came at the same time as the plan for me. I felt pretty fortunate.
And you'll never make another one.
It rolled okay too. It rolled okay.
I think the whole thing with these plans is that it's kind of like what I was saying about smart drops earlier, where you'd find, in Diablo 2, you'd find some awesome item for a different class and then go play that class. That's kind of how the plans work. Where you find a plan and it's got some awesome recipe. You're like, well, crap, I have to develop myself to making this one recipe. And some of them are awesome, as we've been lamenting. But if you get a good one, it's really motivating and it's kind of fun to do it. It just changes up the gameplay, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be running 50 times to the very beginning of Act 1, not killing any monsters, just looking in cellars for any other reason.
Yeah.
Trick or treat, right? So any final thoughts on legendary materials, guys?
More.
You're just sort of you want them to be awesome.
Just a little bit more. That's it.
Little more legendary props.
I mean,
on
like
them,
if
like
each one of these crafted legendaries had maybe just a different proc to vary up builds just a little bit more, then you would have different types of people doing different runs to get that particular legendary, because it will spice things up. If there was a Crusader shield that made, I can't even think of anything right now, but if it had just a different property that I couldn't get from farming, then I'd be doing that so that I could at least have, something as opposed to what I have right now. It would be fun. But because like the Crusader shield, or I think of just any of the shields are just stat sticks, then I know I can find something comparable doing what I'm doing now. So there's less of a draw for me to do it.
That reminds me, the other property on the bow is 30 to 35% critical hit damage. So that's why I was really wanted to make it, because you can't get that on any other bows now. So that's not a proc, but that's what made it really damaging and valuable. And it was like a 16% upgrade over a bow that was only 100 less DPS, because it had the big critical hit damage, even though I tried to turn the attack speed into Dex. But it was pretty good. So, and the Archfiend arrows have an inherent bonus to Elite's damage, which you can get on the quivers, but you're not likely to. So those could have been something that would be much better than almost any legendary you'd find, unless you had a really cool proc on it. But okay, final topic is I was talking to someone else today. I was talking to Rush, actually, who runs our IncGamers site, about some stuff, about the site stuff and what we're doing with the wiki and everything. And he repeatedly referred to Reaper of Souls as RoS, like a man's name. Is this acceptable, or should this be hunted down and scourged from the English language? Xanth, you're an English teacher. You'd first call.
Wow, that is the
just phonetically RoS.
Actually, I kind of don't mind it. It doesn't sound too bad.
He's wrong.
Okay, Ynzerg,
He's wrong. That's terrible. I even when I see the letters, I've never said that inside my head. I've never sounded it out. I can't handle it, man.
What do you call World of Warcraft as an abbreviation?
I don't have enough time for it.
Everyone calls it WoW. No one ever says WOW. So why should we say arr-oh-ess?
They should just name it another HOTS acronym.
Well, there you go. So you just said HOTS.
Yeah, but RoS
is HOTS.
Not.
I think you've just I just think you've yourself twice.
You tried to trick me into saying WoW, and I did not.
I didn't try to trick you. I did. But then you volunteered HOTS yourself.
I know. RoS. I don't know. RoS. Let's call it RoS. Let's be a little elitist.
I think arr-oh-ess rolls up the tongue quickly.
I say arr-oh-ess
in
my head, so I'm gonna stick with that.
So you didn't say it was bad, Xanth. Can you explain yourself?
I mean, like, if it's WoW or HOTS and RoS, I guess, kind of works. I think maybe because we've called it RoS for so long, maybe we just didn't even make that kind of connection. I mean, I'm not going to go to calling it RoS now, but I don't mind it. You know, it's like it's your good friend Ross. You know,
Oh, it's even worse.
I'm just
Yeah,
hanging
We've
out
watched
with
Friends
Ross
too many
tonight.
times.
You know, whatever.
I think part of the issue is that ROS rolls off the tongue easily, as opposed to WOW,
yeah,
which takes
that's
forever to
true.
Yeah.
say. And it reminds me of, remember the early days of the internet, like 15 years ago, when you hear like radio commercials for some realtor or something, and they'd actually say HTTP
www.
colon
Oh God, yeah.
backslash www dot before people knew how the internet worked. They'd read off like every bit of it, you know. And in the old days, it wouldn't. And when you're using Netscape and stuff for browsers, before they had the protocols, if you actually just typed in, IncGamers.com, it wouldn't work. You had to actually type in www dot whatever you wanted to do. That actually mattered. Now browsers are all smart enough that it just does it whatever you type in. You type in two letters and it goes to Google. You type in GO and you're there. So I think that's maybe part of the thing is just that the actual letters in question. And World of Warcraft picking the two of the slowest letters in the English language to speak out loud. Which I always thought was funny about those old internet addresses in commercials, because far and away the slowest letter to speak in the English language is W. Every other one is like one or two syllables. Even I think every other is just one
Yeah,
syllable, right?
but
Have you seen it?
WoW is actually an
Yeah, and
acronym,
that one's full.
and ROS is, I mean, unless you want to spell it wrong, is an initialism that doesn't really sound like anything cool. So I think WoW,
That,
yeah, it
Yeah.
does that
does.
make any
So
sense,
I
Sam?
mean, it is an acronym. I mean,
Well,
You're
and
an English
an
teacher, so
acronym is a word,
I'll
and this is ROS is not a word.
well, technically, anything can end up being an acronym if you put it together. You're saying "wow" is an actual word to begin
Well,
with.
I thought the distinction was an initialism is an acronym that is not an actual word.
Hmm.
Like, so, anyways, that doesn't matter. All I'm saying is that WoW is easy to say, and that's it. End of
Easier than
story.
WOW. Well, Ross
Uh,
is easy to say too,
yeah, he
apparently.
does.
Xanth agrees.
I'm a flip flopper, guys. What's going on
This should be a site vote next week.
here?
ROS
This is
or
an
Ross
official poll.
or Reapers. The devs are all calling it Reaper and Reapers. I've seen them. I haven't heard fans say that much. We all go with the acronym. It
Mhm.
seems like I've seen some dev interviews and they're always saying, "Well, in Reaper, in the Reaper beta, and then coming up in Reaper next week," and
Yeah,
they don't say
Reaper
ROS
sounds
because no
cooler
one
than
knows what that
Ross.
means. Anything sounds cooler than Ross.
Oh,
That was the whole
I'm
point of
hanging out
this
with
segment.
Ross right now.
Yeah. The other funny thing I noticed, if you type reaperofsouls.com, it's not Blizzard. It's some squatting piece of shit, one of those
Oh,
link farm sites. I'm amazed Blizzard didn't buy that or get their lawyers. I mean, I'm sure it probably existed for 20 years. It's kind of a common phrase, but I just hit the by accident today thinking it would take me to the Blizzard
Hmm.
site. And it doesn't. It takes you to some weird, realtor thing that has no mention of Blizzard or games anywhere on it. So I'm sure everyone's trying that now at home. Really? Does it? It's not a porn site. At least it didn't look like a porn site to me. So it is safe for work, but I'm surprised they couldn't sell that or buy it out or whatever. I guess they figure no one cares. What's your favorite porn site, man? Oh wait, what?
where
We're
did
digressing.
I'm,
So any final thoughts, guys?
Actually,
We need to
there's
wrap
one
this
thing
up.
I've been talking about with a couple people, and I'm just curious because I'd like to talk it out here. All right. So Paragon Points.
Paragon.
How
I just hit
and
200 like half an hour ago,
each
which made me happy because then you finally
right,
get to max one of
each
your
time you get a
stats.
Paragon
Sorry, go ahead.
point, I mean, do you necessarily care? Like, does it personally affect you? Like,
Depends on how many you have.
when you're spending them all at once, yeah, that maybe you feel that way. But by and large, every time I get a level, I don't really care. So I've been spitballing this idea, and it is
How many do you have? 150-ish?
157. Um,
That would be 150
155.
too.
Sorry, I'm going larger than what I think. So this idea I have: what if Paragon points could be used to customize skills as opposed to these baseline stats?
mm,
What if each skill
approving groan.
had three different options? Maybe increase damage, decrease cooldown, and a third one that I can't think of right now, as opposed to just throwing them at your stats, and you could be customizing your actual builds as opposed to just kind of increasing some numbers. What?
Compensating for
Exactly.
gear. Well, the current system, it's all itemization. You know, it's a way to
Because
compensate or add to your gear, and you want it to be. How about why not
hey,
both?
maybe
As the little girl says in the taco
the thing
commercial.
that's really kind of drawn me is, I think back to the build playing a huge part in whether or not your character can work well. And if you have the ability to customize or kind of specialize in certain skills that you like that maybe are underperforming, but with the right tweaking that could work, maybe there'd be an opportunity there. And Paragon Points really, to me, seem like an opportunity that could diversify the game a lot. And I think the one roadblock in any sort of system like that is Blizzard's tendency to kind of err on the side of not necessarily ease, but user friendliness. I could see some complexities being built into this. But to me, that would, like each Paragon point, then I would be kind of a little more excited because, like, hey, maybe now I can get this particular skill working, or even if it's a marginal increase, I can see that this build is working better as a result. And then it's really about the build working as opposed to just, the stats.
Well, I can tell him why he's wrong, Ynzerg, but I'll let you go first.
I can't tell him why he's wrong. But I mean, what am I just responding on Paragon Points in general? Do I care? Or do I care about Xanth's idea? I'll do both. um, Paragon Points.
What am I, the
I don't know,
podcast
man.
police? Whatever, talk, dude.
Paragon Points. Yeah, I mean, I think I have.
How many do you have, by
I'm
the way?
95. I think they're like. I think when it's interesting to like completely dump them all into something else and see what happens. I still like that aspect of it, but I usually end up using the same stuff because I'm playing hardcore, so I'm a lot of life on hit and a lot of life. I like life per second, but I mean, I think it's interesting to be able to like transfer them all on a whim, get some like super attack speed or reduce cooldowns or something like that. But the effectiveness for those is so small; it doesn't really make a difference, unfortunately. Um,
Until you have 50 points in them, in which case
yeah, but
it's pretty
I'm not
large in
there
many
quite yet.
cases. Well, we had that whole debate with this system when it was first announced, and then all during the beta and PTR, in that Paragon points are kind of irrelevant individually, but they're really useful in large quantities, like Chinese soldiers. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I was trying there. There had to be some analogy that would have worked. Anyway, so if you had, if you have, I just recently, during Diablo 3 version 2, I started a hardcore character on the European server since I'm running our European clan and thought I should at least have more than a level 3 demon hunter. And she, I think, is now Paragon 47. And every Paragon point leveling up was like, oh, another point. Like, it makes a difference when you're crappy gear, even just 1% more critical hit damage. I'm like, oh, that makes a difference. This actually does impact my build a little bit. Okay, not the build, but I mean, it makes me a little more effective. And adding a little bit more run speed every time and stuff, that's really nice when you're leveling up. And I think there's sort of a dead zone from like 100 to like 300, where it's like, okay, this is making a huge difference, but it's something. But then eventually I can easily see it making a difference when you get up into the 500 and 600s, and suddenly you can cut 10% off your cooldown, or something you're not putting points in now. Like you just said, Ynzerg, pretty much everybody in hardcore goes with regen and life on hit. And there are other fields in those tabs that are useful, but that no one's using because they're not as useful. But once you have enough points to really do that and play with it, I think it gets more fun. But then that's
Yeah,
years and years of play, and that's like 1% of players who are getting that many points ever. So that brings me back to Xanth's whole thing with its skills. And of course, we all know that there were runestones that did that kind of thing all during development, and they eventually took those out and kind of codified and unified and streamlined the skills into whatever they are currently. I think largely because it was probably just really impossible to balance. And you'd have different runestones, and it was, okay, now I'm adding multi-shot, or else I can out damage, or else I can change the effect to a different thing. And I think they just probably found it almost impossible to get any kind of consistency across the board. And how do a lot of skills it doesn't get any. I mean, even your examples, Xanth, you're like, okay, this adds more damage, or it does cooldown,
Well,
or something else.
it's an idea.
Even thinking of 3 effects is hard, and there's such variety between skills. I mean, you have skills that are just buffing your damage for 10 seconds versus skills that are casting minions, and I just think that that's really, really, really hard to get any kind of balance across the board with.
True, but
And also, you get a lot of bonuses to skills from equipment now, with procs and then with the plus damage to
right.
specific skills. But I do wish there were more variety and stuff. I wish some skills you could I mean, that's what makes some of the legendaries so fun, you know. Like the quiver I have on my European Demon Hunter, is the one that makes Bola Shot explode instantly, and that just makes Bola Shot a whole lot more fun. You can use much more than I would have otherwise with the 1.5 or 2 second delay. And it'd be nice if you could do something like that with, other than just with finding this one really
Right.
awesome legendary item, right?
Something.
So we seem like we've thrown a lot of straws into the pile, and we're not sure which one comes out.
Maybe, but I like the idea. I like the idea of expanding the functionality a little bit. I think that would be interesting, because it's definitely. I mean, you can't say it's not helpful. It's just maybe not as exciting as it could be.
Exactly.
What if there were different fields in? So do you think there could be more interesting fields in the Paragon Points? Because they changed those around a lot during the beta. They've actually got much more interesting. They added a bunch of things and
Yeah,
took
I
out some
mean,
stuff.
it's just at its current iteration, I just don't like when I get a point, I'm not like running off to go figure out what I'm going to toss it in. It's just kind of it's just going to go here and that's it. Like I don't feel that.
Is that because your gear is so awesome that it doesn't make any
Or
difference
then I
anymore?
just have so many points right now that it's not making.
Yeah, oh,
Well, yeah,
150. Woo.
but it's not making as much of an impact as what it maybe could. I guess that's what I'd like to see is with each level, it being, I don't know, uh, having some sort of meaning than just an arbitrary point kind of being tossed on a board.
This installment of Why Making Video Games is Hard is brought to you by Xanth and his 2 guests. Join us next week when we'll discuss why it's really hard to balance character skills. Any last thoughts, Ynzerg?
No, I'm happy with the game. I really think they've made a good game here, man. It's a lot more fun to play than it ever was. So I'm just gonna ride it out and until I don't know, just enjoy it.
How many rifts have you finished during this podcast?
I'm bountying right now. I have not done a rift yet. Well, I did one, but just yeah,
Oh, just one. Well,
But
in that case.
actually, I do have a
It's
question.
like I'm
I
on
guess I
7.
thought. What's like DPS and toughness for Torment 1? What do you guys? What's this consensus at this point to safely do it? Hardcore.
Hardcore or softcore?
I,
Softcore, it's 300 DPS and 0 toughness because who cares?
I was
It depends on your class, obviously.
yeah,
Why
I
don't you
was
answer,
just
Xanth?
reading
You've been
a
playing.
post on that this morning. It seems like a lot of people are kind of over the board because you get one person who's like, you need 10 million toughness and 500k DPS, and then you got one person be like, oh, that's baloney. You know, see,
That's a lot more than I've
right,
seen many people
exactly,
doing it
because they'd
with.
be like, oh, I've been doing
Man,
this.
I have that right now, but I still like my life can drop pretty fast, like
Well,
very easily.
that leads.
Well, are
I
you doing
tried
it
it
solo or
solo
multiplayer?
though. I've
So
only my
solo's
friends are
much
too
harder.
scared to do it, so I've only tried it solo. And yeah, it's really hard.
Well, that leads into another thing to kind of talk about, and that's the illusion of toughness. Toughness as a number can be really confusing because you can have a huge amount of toughness and just get wiped off the face of the earth with no, all resistance or anything like that. So you have these people who are going into Torment with a high toughness number, but it's all VIT and life percentage and all that other stuff, but they're not adding in resistance, and they're just getting trashed.
Getting hip.
And it's just
They're
it was
running into
perfect
hiccups, you're
timing,
saying?
really.
Yeah, I wish they would take out the life after killing an enemy in your toughness rating, because that's not useful in the fights that matter.
Is that in healing
Oh,
only?
doesn't that factor in? I
I
thought
thought it
that.
was in
Oh, maybe
healing.
you're
I
right.
don't
Yeah,
know.
you're right. Yeah, maybe.
The thing that's really confusing is they rate defense much more highly than resist all, and that's I think exactly backwards in many cases. You'll find a new pair of boots and they have no resistance and they'll have 200%, 200 plus 200 defense, and it'll be like, ooh, this is a green on defense. Like, no, it's not. It's not a green on toughness.
I've
Right.
You're
usually
lying to me.
seen that though only when I get like a pretty enormous Vite boost on an item. But like I'll lose all the resistance, but I'll get like I don't know 300 vitality or something like that.
Yeah, that's bad. You want damage
Yeah, I know, but I'm
mitigation,
just
not
saying
just
it's never
cool.
for me. I don't think it's been armor. It's just, but yeah, I agree.
So we gave you no answer whatsoever to your question, by the way,
Okay,
but that's
cool.
kind of how it goes around here. I saw people the first day, second day, Reaper of Souls already in Torments, and they were doing with like 310 sheet DPS, and I was like, really? And they had 5 million toughness, and they were doing Torment in groups and surviving in
Okay.
hardcore, which I was surprised by, because we had much bigger numbers. I mean, like 1,000 DPS, like 1,000 K DPS was considered like baseline for Torment in the beta, and even that wasn't
Yeah.
very fast. I eventually got my Demon Hunter to 1600, and she was like 1480 when I switched to Crinder Shot, and she could face roll T1 at that point. Very easy killing speed. But she would still die occasionally. I was playing softcore at that point.
I'm currently at like
But
420 for damage and 7 million toughness, and I'm still not rolling in the Torment yet.
yeah, that seems pretty low on damage. I mean, because if you get a really tough boss, it just takes you a long time to kill it, and then a long time to kill it, your
Well,
buffs run
especially
out
with
and
the
bad things
Crusader
happen.
too,
So,
which is so cooldown heavy that I'm just kind of waiting for the right gear.
yeah, if you don't get your burst, then you're out of luck and you're in between, and you need to run. If you're out of
Are
forcing,
you
then
playing
die
Torment right now,
because you're
Flux?
really slow. I have done a few in it. I'm not playing it. I did a couple in multiplayer and it was easy. I could do Master pretty easily with my Demon Hunter now. But I've still mostly just been doing really face rolling hard, and I just fly through hard. Like, it gets dizzying when you play super fast with Vault, and you just sort of like you just zone out after about 3 games. You don't even pay attention to damage anymore. I'm afraid I'm gonna die just because I'm not even paying attention. But I'm really kind of tired of that play style. I feel like I'm a whirlwind barbarian, and it's like just never stop, and it's just chaotic and crazy and boring. So I'm actually looking forward to getting into Torment more full time and being a little more conscientious and
Yeah.
scientific in my play style. But probably not tonight because I have a lot of work to do. Anyway, we're over time. Any last
Yeah,
thoughts,
we
guys?
did.
I think we just had our last thoughts. And Xanth brought up his massive digression, which I'll never
You'll
forgive him
deal
for.
with it.
I guess it was revenge for us picking fun of you
Probably.
last week
I
when you
would
weren't
like
here.
to say that our IncGamers Hardcore clans are recruiting.
Exactly. And you are
Yes,
in
I
the head
am.
of the North
And we
clan,
could always use more people.
and winter is coming. And I'm ahead of the West clan, and we have 90-ish, but we're being pretty open on until we get to about 100, and then it's going to get a little tougher. You need to have like a Paragon 50 or something at that point in hardcore. And we split our 2 clans into 3 clans, and Zabafan is heading up our East clan, and it immediately filled up. He was at 115 the first day. So either his magnetic personality, or people just on the East Coast thought it actually mattered where you lived. It doesn't. You can be in any time zone and join any one of them you want. You can even be a Canadian. Do they have time zones in Canada?
Is there a
It's
max
just winter
number
time,
of
I think, in
clans you
Canada.
can be in?
One.
One.
Okay. Well,
That's
I'd
Battle.net's rule. And
have to give up
150
my
is the max
glorious
size for a
leadership
clan.
role of my clan of 3 if so, you know.
Wow. Well, you can be a leader of your community of 3. You can be in multiple
Okay.
communities,
All
but
right.
only one
Sounds
clan.
good.
So I'm not sure there's any point in having a clan of 3, to be honest. But that's a
Well, that's what it
friends
is,
list,
basically.
generally speaking.
But BNet,
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to get into another subject, but BNet does feel a lot more social now, which is wonderful.
Yeah, the whole point in a clan is there's 20 open games at all times, and if you say, hey, T3 Rift runs, who's in? And suddenly 20 people are like, hey, let's go. So it's really easy for matchmaking and stuff. Anyway, we're digressing. We've gone long. This is the Diablo podcast. We are online at diabloincgamers.com, and happy hunting.
Ooh.
Ooh.